Have you ever felt you were so far into a solution that you've lost track of the problem you set out to solve? Was it even the right problem in the first place? I'm sure most of you have been in this position at some point in your career or even your personal life. A couple of years ago, we were hired by a UK household name that had just spent hundreds and thousands of pounds designing and building a new digital presence that would take their service offering to the next level. They were confident this would set them apart from the competition, reduce costs by allowing their customers to self-serve, and ultimately lead to an increase in profits. On the surface, the solution that they'd implemented was fast, good-looking, and entirely usable, but to their surprise, the reception was lukewarm at best. Customers were even asking if they could reinstate its predecessor. Unfortunately, as we know, this isn't entirely uncommon in the world of products and services. You put hundreds, maybe even thousands of hours of work into a project, only to find that results aren't quite what you'd expected. Fortunately, this story in particular has a happy ending. We worked closely with the client's internal teams to implement a robust research approach that focused on their customers and the problem space which their solutions inhabit. This helped us identify a number of different personas and their individual intents and purposes, allowing us to see things from their perspective before thinking about how we could help solve the problems they were encountering. Today, we're going to encourage you to take a step back from your products and services and think about the people you're using, so that you can empower your teams to make better, more informed decisions, build behavior-based products that stick, and ultimately deliver more value for your business.
I'm Olena.
And I'm Stuart, and we're both senior UX consultants at Inviqa. We're going to revive your interest in problem-based research by telling you what it is, how to do it, and why you should care. Foundational, exploratory, discovery, generative. This kind of research goes by many names, but its objective is always the same: to better understand people and the problems they face. For the purpose of this talk, we'll be referring to it as problems-based research, because we see it as the simplest and most appropriate term to describe our intention during these activities. The origins of problem-based research are rooted in the world of cognitive psychology, and in particular, our mind's approach to problem solving. The mainstream ideology for research in the modern world of business is heavily lent towards empirical data and focused on validation. This empirical approach is reinforced by business leaders' love of the scientific method, where validation always takes priority over meaningful, deep research, and learning is happening through making or doing rather than just listening. A perfect example of this being the lean startups: build, measure, learn, repeat. I'm willing to bet the majority of the research you conduct is in this vein, and I'm sure you're doing a great job at that. But the problem with this approach is that it gives you very narrow results. Observing people completing tasks in a lab environment does not take into account the complexity and messiness of their lives. It doesn't give you any meaningful insight into what drives them. There's an imbalance between research activities that evaluate systems or validate hypotheses and activities that enable us to understand the complexities of the problems we're trying to solve for our customers. The goal of problem-based research is to focus solely on the intent or purpose of the individual and imagine what it's like to be in their shoes, irrespective of the systems and solutions that they interact with. Essentially, it's all about developing a special type of empathy for your customers, a cognitive empathy that allows you to see things from their perspective. But, I hear you say, we work with products and services, we have apps to ship and deadlines to meet. How does this all relate to what I'm doing? I trust you're all familiar with the Double Diamond, Design Council's framework for innovation. If you're not, then I encourage you to check it out. But at a high level, there are 4 phases to the approach: discover, define, develop, and deliver. Together, the first 2 stages form the problem space. This is the realm of a person who is trying to achieve a deeper intent or purpose, like pay off my mortgage before I stop working so that I can make the most of my retirement. The solution space is how your organization supports them in this intent. For example, recommending alternative utility providers that would save them money. One of the biggest barriers to problem space research is finding the time and space to conduct it. In an ideal world, you'd ensure that a deep study was conducted with customers to fully understand the problem space before even thinking of a solution. But from my experience, very rarely do we inhabit this world. This doesn't mean the opportunity has passed you by. Problem space research can still add value, providing it's decoupled enough from your existing solutions. This separation from the solution space is particularly important. And we found that if you try to include it as part of the same cycle of work as the solution space, you risk deprioritizing it at the first possible opportunity in favor of more tangible, delivery-focused outputs. There are a number of tactics and techniques for creating room to conduct problem space research. If you're part of a large organization with access to researchers, you could assign one of them to focus solely on this kind of research. If you're part of a smaller organization, like a startup, it can often be more challenging. In this case, you might want to allocate one short period a year where your primary goal is to learn as much as you can about the problem space your solutions inhabit. For example, you could dedicate a 2-week sprint purely for this purpose.
So how do you do it? Let me tell you about one of my favorite clients, Vanderbilt. We help them successfully safeguard the expansion of a startup, define customer-centric product strategy and roadmap, and empower their cross-functional teams to make confident decisions. Vanderbilt is an app to keep track of all of your utility bills, broadband expenses, and other relevant outgoings to have them all in one convenient place. It started as a tool to help find utility providers after moving house, but have since then expanded to a general bill management tool. In preparation for a high-level board meeting to secure funding for the future of a company, we started working on understanding the problem space that they were operating in. We had 6 weeks. With problem space research, we study purpose. So the intent or purpose in this case is not like pay a bill, or it's not a task, nor is a goal like keep all my bills in one place, but it is a purpose like be on top of bills to never feel anxious again. So this is what we are trying to get out of the study to be successful. But how do we get to understanding? So another crucial thing is to understand the scope. From narrow scope, like a part of a customer journey, to medium, something like several parts of the journey or actions or the whole customer journey altogether, to broad scope that is wider, or something that could be also too broad, pay any bill. So a goal here is to select the study scope of Goldilocks, because too narrow and you will not be able to get the whole picture. If it gets too broad, you will not get meaningful patterns, because if you think about, any bill could also include dentists or dry cleaners that is not really relevant to a utility bill startup. So staying between medium and broad scope gives us the diversity of behaviors, the different emotional attitudes to bills, different life situations, payment preferences, and things like attitudes towards spending every second Saturday on money saving expert to switch by the 1st of November. So without making dangerous assumptions, In problem space research, you go listening deeply to your customers as they describe their intents of purposes, and you seek to understand them fully and completely. And this is how you can get cognitive empathy, by trying to think like them, by having the ability to walk in their shoes. This method was introduced and popularized by Indy Young, Adaptive Path co-founder, and shaped the success of large airlines, banks, and startups alike. A good hint that you're currently in the problem space is that the purpose that you're getting or studying can go beyond time, can transcend time. Feeling safe about our homes is equally relevant for me now. And it was, as it's definitely relevant for my grandparents 50 years ago, despite massive differences in ages, life situations, and countries. So we get there by gathering deep reasoning. We needed hearts and minds, because people often, on the research, people often just give us a surface view, and we needed to get deeper and understand their intents and purposes. So this said, we began by identifying a diverse spread of individuals. Important here was to get a mix of behaviors, renters, homeowners, and differences in the provider switching habits and attitudes toward that. We were very focused on getting different behaviors and thinking styles, because reasoning, things like reasoning for switching once a year for a new tariff, can happen with different ages and within different groups. It can happen within people who are richer versus people who are not well off at life. So demographics is not what usually drives this type of reasoning, because context, past history, influences from friends and family, those things drive personal reactions. Those things drive guiding principles in life. So we use demographics as attributes to ensure we do not speak to similar people. But the core here was to think about behaviors and thinking styles. And we listened about their life stories. We dived into their bills, their levels of technology maturity, and online security. So deep reasoning is at the core of problem space research. Human behavior can be explained in different ways, going like shallow, like reactions describing a process or opinions, versus something deep, intense, purposes, life principles. And as I said, problem space research focuses on deep reasoning. In this case, an example of a shallow statement was, I keep my paper bills in a folder. This is just a description. It doesn't give us anything meaningful. Or bills. Honestly, I don't feel anything about bills. Again, this is an emotional reaction or a lack of it, framed as such. But things like, I almost lost my house when I was younger, and I vowed to never be in this situation again. So you bet my bills are in a neat folder, is what we were looking for. When one considers bill paying, excitement is not the first word that pops into mind. But in reality, behind the bills, we got from high comedy to high tragedy. And that was the empathy, this energy and humanity and the power of individual stories. That was something that couldn't be watered down or sterilized. We didn't want to test anything. We didn't want to validate existing solutions, but instead we used what we learned as the beginning point to find the patterns in that data. And because understanding people's purposes is not breaking them down into steps or listing needs or aligning them on a customer journey. It's about looking at the messy information that you get from listening and using that in context about people's life and finding patterns and how do they connect together. We meticulously created research-based personas and their life cycles, actively disseminated customer journeys to the teams, and empowered them with design and user research artifacts that they could use to base their decisions on. And we also learned a lot about lives and existing solutions and systems too. And we recreated them from low complexity to high complexity, from analog diaries, notebooks, list to spreadsheet-like systems, a shared family spreadsheet on a fridge, to digital, like locally and cloud stored spreadsheets, sometimes synced across devices, sets of reminders, things like using default notes applications to track your flatmates paying or not paying in time. So we use those high and low complexity recreations to remind the teams that their product always exists within people's lives. It's not the other way around. So problem space research is strategic and it helps with multitude of decisions over time. And it alleviates doubt. Because the board meeting secured the future of Vanderbilt, it is worth now more than £7.5 million and actively expanding. Problem space research is lasting. What we introduced was a holistic version of customer experience. We were able to sparkle innovation within the product teams. And also, problem space research elevates UX maturity because it gives a great starting point for this holistic view, but also it enables further meaningful research. It could be a tactical or operational research, but it's enabled by the problem space research. Also, problem space research shifted the focus from products to people because we were able to understand the gaps in our knowledge. The team was able to understand the gaps in their knowledge. We de-risked some of their product assumptions together and in general enabled better work. And there is another thing that problem space research can help you with. And that thing is usually a big concern in system and product design that is done right. The outcomes and unknown unknowns that we overlooked or decided not to foresee. So problem space research equips you to bravely address potential unintended consequences by shifting focus from tasks and systems, bringing it back to people and their lives. And this is why private and public companies, from Ministry of Justice to artificial intelligence startups, they are all investing in it to safeguard their customer experience and product strategy.
We've given you a practical overview of problem space research and how it can help elevate your customer experience by encouraging you to spend time focusing on understanding the problems your customers encounter outside the existing systems and solutions your organization provides, telling you how to do it by running product agnostic listening interviews and getting to the deep reasoning of your customers, such as intents, purposes, and guiding principles. And finally, highlighting how it will empower your teams to make better decisions, develop behavior-based products that stick, and ultimately design and build truly innovative solutions to your customers' problems. There are hard questions that keep us up at night, and there's no silver bullet. We all know them. Do we truly understand our customers and their intents? How can we deliver value to our customers that separates us from the competition? Or simply, are we even building the right thing? By investigating and truly understanding the problem space before moving into the solution space, or periodically in parallel to your ongoing work, you'll remove the risk of this kind of anxiety and be able to sleep easy knowing that what you're delivering at the end of all this hard work improves the experience your customers have when using the products or services that your organization provides.